I'm calling my heart, calling my heart, calling my heart. Hey, wana, hey, ana, hey, nay. Pray within me, pray within me, pray within me. Hey, wana, hey, ana, hey, nay, nay, nay. Hey, wana, hey, ana, hey, nay, nay, nay. Oh, Mother Earth, oh, Mother Earth, oh, Mother Earth. Hey, wana, hey, ana, hey, nay. Teach me to walk, teach me to walk, walk in your way. Hey, wana, hey, ana, hey, nay, hey, nay, nay. Oh, Father Sky, oh, Father Sky, oh, Father Sky. Hey, wana, hey, ana, hey, nay. Teach me to fly, teach me to fly, fly in your way. Hey, wana, hey, ana, hey, nay, hey, nay, nay. Oh, brother sun, oh, brother sun, oh, brother sun. Hey, wana, hey, ana, hey, nay. Shine on your light, shine on your light, shine on my way. Hey, wana, hey, ana, hey, nay, nay, nay. Oh, sister moon, oh, sister moon, oh, sister moon. Hey, wana, hey, ana, hey, nay. Lighten my dreams, lighten my night, the night of my soul. Wana, hey, ana, hey, nay, nay, nay. Hey, wana, hey, ana, hey, nay, nay, nay. Angels from above, angels from below, angels from within. Hey, wana, hey, ana, hey, nay. Come with your grace, come and heal me, come and heal me. Hey, wana, hey, ana, hey, nay, hey, nay, nay. When we embrace all that exists, all that is here. Hey, wana, hey, ana, hey, nay. Then the heart prays, then the heart shines, and the heart sings. Hey, wana, hey, ana, hey, nay, hey, nay, nay. Hey, wana, hey, ana, hey, nay, hey, nay, nay. is love. Hey, wana, hey, na, hey, nay. When we are one, when we are one, one with the love, one with the love, one with the love.
lo menos dejamos cantos y por lo menos dejamos flores.
So which wolf will you feed? One makes you strong, one makes you weak. And those who know and those who seek. Amidst the chaos, find your peace. Yeah. I know it's a wolf I feed. I know it's a wolf I'll feed. Spirit, I've had it. Bring me back to the nomadic way of weaving through the damage. Mindful, stay mindful. Great Spirit, for my sisters, let me be a flowing river. Flood the banks, the rocks that bind her. Carry, I'll carry. Great Spirit. Oh, wow, great Spirit. Oh, wow, great Spirit, for my brothers, let me be a mountain under which he climbs to discover his process. Now that's progress. Great Spirit, all that hinders, tie reminders to my fingers. I must speak with you more often. Great Spirit. Oh, wow, great Spirit. Oh, wow, great Spirit for my relations. Give them strength to face racism in every single situation. Easy now, wanna speak loud. Great Spirit, take me instead. Guide me down the road of red and Kashala. I am shade praying. Oh, then Kashala, yeah. Then Kashala, yeah. Then Kashala. System collapse, nothing but the earth will last, and I'll be singing sweetly into the darkness. Now hot this great Spirit on my tongue, be still, the time will come when everyone will sing, all life is sacred, while I'm waiting. Great Spirit, my fist is up, bringing the power to the people, your reflection of us. Some of your people can't hear it.
Sup? Gonna talk about earthquakes. pardon me. Hello. I'm Steve. Many things. Just had a anyway, odd interaction today. I am the discoverer of the theory of everything. I was told, not really discovered. I'm kind of just kind of going along with it, I guess. I don't know what's really happening. Maybe you guys do. I don't know. But this is my experience. My experience is that I discovered the theory of everything in 2014 and quit my job as a patent examiner. I was a chemical engineer, patent examiner in fuel cells and batteries at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. Living in San Diego, working from home after living in Vegas and working from home after moving to D.C. for the job. And then one day, contemplating all distant redshifted galaxies and the observations of basically cosmological redshift, and which are the basis really of why the Big Bang is the dominant model in cosmology. And I just felt gravity could do it. I couldn't figure out, how can gravity do it? Do what now? Hubble's law. This is where my research began. I thought all distant redshifted galaxies, increasing correlation of redshift per distance, known as Hubble's law, and cosmological redshift specifically. I thought it made sense that gravity caused it, because then it wouldn't add complexities of expansion of space, which is added as a fundamental. It's kind of like before the observation, let's say there's like gravity, electromagnetism is strong and weak interaction, let's say. And then after the observation, there's end expansion of space. So we've like added complexity to the underlying fundamentals. It's not really the purpose of physics or the objective. The objective is to explain more with less, specifically. Not to explain more with more, because that's kind of cheating. And what's also cheating is, as this image shows, it was interpreted as velocity, but the observation is redshift versus distance with plotted galaxies. Using Cepheid variable stars to determine the distance of the galaxies and realizing this correlation, Edwin Hubble, which is why it became known as Hubble's law, but it's really a correlation of increasing redshift per distance that becomes not, it begins with the appearance of linearity, so they said expansion of space, but then over large distances it becomes apparent it's not linear and it's exponential. And so they said, oh shit, we can't explain this without added complexity of dark energy. But since we've already accepted that, we'll accept it again. So dark energy and accelerating expansion of space. So now we've got these two things that happened, apparently, because of redshift, because of this observation, which really is, again, redshift per distance that immediately was translated into velocity, because velocity is interpreting redshift as a product of Doppler shift. So that's how they cheated. It was like a sleight of hand. It's not expansion of space that causes redshift per distance by motion away. It's Doppler shift. But they just said, so does this other thing. That's expansion of space, so that doesn't break the laws of physics by things going faster than the speed of light, which wouldn't really make sense. We seem to think that can't happen, so that wouldn't make sense. So it must be that space is expanding, but there's still adding the complexity. And I thought, well, gravity can cause redshift, and if it can explain it, then it would be able to explain it without added complexity because it would be gravity and gravity. So before the observation, the model would include gravity. After the observation, the model would still include just gravity. I wanted to have plus expansion of space, so that's a positive. So it just made sense intuitively and philosophically, but I couldn't really figure out how that might be. I realized for a correlation to even exist at all, it would have to be one system. It couldn't be many systems, because like each individual galaxy, which would have different masses, because they would have different masses. So their distance away, it would not correlate with their redshift. It would be a function of, like, this one might have a super low mass, so its redshift would be down here, so the correlation wouldn't exist. But it does. So that indicates if it's gravity, it has to really be one system, which kind of points to, well, again, back to like a philosophical thing. Philosophically, we see larger and larger systems, so there's no reason to stop that pattern at galaxies and then just like assume there's no like orbited mass that galaxies orbit kind of thing. Just because we haven't like recognized it, it's more likely that that type of thing does exist, and that orbits something else, and that orbits something else. And somewhere up the chain, one of them that's close enough but overwhelming enough bends all the light back to it, through it, out the other side, but then the light still can't get away. It bends it back to it again. And so it's trapped in its gravity, caused to flow in a figure 8 structure that then arrives at Earth from any angle and at an additive redshift per distance. And so gravity can do it. And how gravity would create increasing redshift per distance like this is because each orbit through a figure 8 has a radial motion away and inward that's equal, so that cancels, but then it has orbital motion that's always away, so it would produce additive redshift per distance. And so we would anticipate seeing that type of thing. We even see like a wobble that maybe reflects like the figure 8 itself, that's more visible on a small scale. Maybe, although this is, I think, too small of a scale, where the system is larger scale even. Uncertain. I mean, the pattern begins, so it must be overwhelming at that point. There certainly are anomalies, like quasars, that whole NARP really talks about, and it was worth hearing out. Okay, so that's where it began. Then it turned into expanding Earth-related stuff, and it really is just affirming classical mechanics. So I researched lots of prophecy because that's what Isaac Newton was looking into. I was like, this dude knows what he's talking about. A song told me to consider gravitational lensing because I, for a long time, figured, well, a large system would produce a correlation, but in all directions, no, it would produce a dichotomy. But if it's able to bend it back to it and then just lens it at Earth from any angle, so it's kind of like producing an illusion of all these galaxies, then that would actually produce it. I mean, it's a can of worms, but it fits just like what we know already, gravity. So I kind of, and it explains magnetic fields by the figure 8, basically. And the flow of the subtle around the large, massive, gross system. Let's see, playlists. Got a bunch of playlists now. Assume nothing. So it's at some point I reduced it to ultimately there's subtler and larger systems ad infinitum in both directions. And it is in essence infinity manifest, which can really be arrived at by assuming nothing in a like actual way, or like it's the simplest thing in like a scientific sense. This starting assumption is literally nothing, but then it's also all that is assumed. So it's got this like duality is the thing. It's dualistically nothing and all, like a everything. So it's kind of like a perfect battery that then just eternally gives rise to infinity manifest, which is one like the balance between those, which is kind of one like a straight line of like two colliding forces that then have a balance line that's one, and like the making it so that really all is one in a like true sense, mathematical, but where infinity emerges within that like one. Like if we zoom in on the one, is actually infinity in a way. I don't know if in a way, maybe exactly. So I got a bunch of playlists. Ignore that one. Bunch of videos. Okay. So these are physics videos. I'm just kind of doing a recap. If anyone's like, what the fuck, dude? Like, I'm just doing a recap. It's been a while. I'm like, just jump into things. It's probably like, what's going on here? There's a lot going on here. I really view it as like approaching a mountain. I've been working diligently and endlessly down this like breakthrough path where like a breakthrough happened and I broke through to another reality in essence, and it was like just a sea of low-hanging fruit to just be like, hey, oh shit, check it out, and so it's kind of accumulated, but it really began with physics. This is more physics of consciousness and relating consciousness in a real way to the process of physics rather than just kind of whimsically maybe, or but more in a like it is the case kind of way where the consciousness behaves according to the laws of physics, which maybe I should have like think on more, given that I constantly blame others for my failures. Everyone's ignoring me. It's not because I'm a total dick about it all. Oh, damn. This is my most recent, but after the physics really branched into geology with this video, and the research building into it, but like at some point in the process, I came across ancient Dwarka. I really know very little about Hinduism as a whole, except for the things that I've investigated, which is Dwarka and shalograms. And it led to this video because I felt like I found it. I just literally heard about it, like bathymetry. I heard about Dwarka. I'm very much a literalist. I'm a scientist at heart. I'm like, if this prophecy is so, it's not partial, it's not figurative, it's literal, and it's complete. That's the only way it's so, where it's like scientifically indisputable. Where like something was foretold or whatever. Some information was known. But so Dwarka is described as being a city of gold, silver, gems, that kind of thing. And turn that off for now. Here's modern Dwarka. And there's ruins found like over here that many associate with being ancient, like actually consider ancient Dwarka. But the issue is those ruins are really just stone. There's no evidence that I've seen of the actual details of the text about Dwarka. Whereas, so like I just looked at the bathymetry and this freaking thing pops out. I'm like, dude. I mean, ignoring whatever's going on there, that maybe could be said to be ancient roads, but I wouldn't say so. It might be, it's probably more the data gathering, I don't know. Let's just assume it's data gathering just for the sake of it, even though it's right next to Dwarka, so maybe it's not. I don't want to say it's anything more. Maybe someone can investigate that further if they're interested. I don't know if I would myself, like not that I don't know if I would. I mean, I don't know that I will. I don't know if I will, I guess. So if someone wanted to, this really helps it pop out. By putting in the contours. Now, Dwarka means gateway to heaven, or gated city. Dwarka meaning, I don't know why it's not got. Yeah, door to Brahma, gateway to heaven, gateway. Gateway to this place that is described as being built on 6 pillars. If I go like this, built on 6 pillars, 4 on the left, 2 on the right. I don't know if that will bring it up actually. Interesting. Okay, let's just put in Dwarka. I couldn't find the source of this. There's a lot of Hindu texts, so like the main ones that I actually read did not actually say this. But I mean, I've come across it several times. So this is talking about the excavations probably at that site, which is found by, I think, S.R. Rao or something. But so, going into this, I had realized, just based on the pieces fit, that the Earth expanded and doesn't function under plate tectonics. And I generally was becoming open to the flood, and I don't know at what point I really realized the flood had happened, or at least for all intents and purposes appears entirely that way, where every detail is made to look that way. So it seems like that means it actually happened, and then just like get made to look that way, even though maybe it does through like a higher power, essentially, leading to the flood. Thanks there, Mosey. But so I investigated this, and that led to this video over here, which was like very rapid within days. Like you can even see in my videos. Let's see. Dwarka, there it is. Let's see. I don't know if that will say. May 21st, 2022. And then June 12th. So that's the amount of time between basically seeing that and being like, dude, that looks like everything described about Dwarka. It's just, the thing is, here's Pakistan. Why is Pakistan there? Because here's where the Hindu stuff is. It's kind of divided by where things are thought to have been. Like, look how obvious it is there. Like, what? How does no one think that's Dwarka? I don't think they've looked here. I mean, it's the right like depth where it would have been visible or above sea level at a time when the sea level was lower. It's just got the details. Even I've come across like surface area suggestions that are similar. It's just far so north that it's in disputed territory because they essentially it was considered safely not Hindu enough for this divide of Muslim Hindu people that the British Empire imposed on the region to basically divide people and create strife. Now there's tension because they were divided. It's almost like a freaking battery with a separator. Fueling something. That's a kind of interesting thought. Battery with a separator. But that led me into, at some point, realizing the flood currents are really traceable in this map. And that began really my underground science series leading into this video, which was after maybe like 60 or something. January 8th, 2023. So the Dwarka one was June 12th. 7 months prior. So 7 months later, I've begun to greatly trace flows in this map. I mean, certainly things are still unclear. but it's become like a fact. I'm like, this is established fact at this point. It's just a matter of people acknowledging it. That this map is caused by undercurrents that are still flowing and related to earthquakes, so that's kind of what we're building into now. Is these are all currents, but they're currents of the flood. Specifically, the process of the flood that was related to the attack of ancient Dwarka, which was right here, and next to right there, where an ancient Dwarka was attacked by a vortex weapon. Right next to it is this vortex thing, this swirl, ice cream swirl looking thing, which is itself within a larger swirl, which is itself within a even larger swirl. That's like in here. I'm not even sure actually. If it never occurred to me that it might have swirled here. It's better visible in the satellite imagery, because it more so goes across there in the satellite imagery. Thanks for hanging out, dudes. Sup, Gary? Maybe Reed? Oh. Hey, maybe Ben. Thanks, Ben. That was cool. Oh, freaking. Oh. It's almost like a snakehead here that loops around. Oops. To like a rattlesnake tail, even maybe? I don't know. It never occurred to me there's that kind of thing going on. Just generally around this boundary here, and then this boundary here, back to here. There's like a inner margin where an outer eddy that's kind of bounded here as well is flowing, where it's kind of changing from like this path to over this way to maybe even over that way, like a scorpion tail kind of thing happening. To elongate a jet stream this way. And really straighten the continents apart as the Earth expanded to a new radius to actually provide like a spinal straightening element. By the currents interactions through the layers. And then going over here and doing all sorts of stuff. Making the Rockies. At least the Laramide. Okay, so, and then there's all sorts of stuff. Maybe it would be good to look at some of these currents, because they kind of relate. Also, shallograms are involved. Ammonites are not fossils. There's also that. And he moves on So some currents involved. Maybe, let's say like this one might be a better one to start on because not utterly like just on top of a snippet or whatever. So an eddy at Hudson Bay, eddy at Great Lakes, eddy at the Gulf of Mexico, eddy out here center that ends up centered on Bermuda, eddy that's not drawn here, but eddies, a bunch of eddies really it seems over in this area, different sizes. Flows that go all over the place, an eddy here too, but eddy here that's really involved with lots of things. This eddy is like a main expansion eddy of the Earth. As Australia was over here, Papua New Guinea was along this boundary, and then Australia, and then this was closed up, and then it was attached to South America over here before it all expanded. Some flow, so flowing in through this way like a chakra, flowing through here like a chakra, back the other way like an opposing chakra, kind of like a Shiva lingam. Shout out Gary, we're talking about Shiva lingams today, they're real cool, definitely seems related to shalograms in ways I had not really thought closely about. Besides just generally, like, I thought essentially my interpretation was like many ammonites, whereas almost like mathematically the same, but not really able to be simply represented with just two ammonites on top of each other. But it clearly is, and that's that's sweet. I did not realize. So here's some currents. Here's that current coming through here, a boundary current that then does stuff over here. All sorts of stuff, way more than that even. It's also flexing. There's a current flowing in this way that's actually going to be quite relevant to what we're going to talk about today, that there's a current that would at least at one point went this way, if I ever get there. And it seems like there's maybe this one's actually good to think about in general, shoot, where it seems like, I mean, I certainly could have some things mistaken, but like this is docked, these stuffs are docked, all the green was moved northward from Baja California region and docked around 100 million, and my interpretation is that a current was flowing this way and went through here, but it was cut off by the docking, which then moved things up this way instead, where it kind of elongated out here. This is where the sphere of Hawaii rolled through that was up here at the time when it did that. I know. In the currents, a sphere formed literally like a planetoid on the Earth's surface under the crust. Really not on the surface, although it emerged to the surface. That moved in the process and is in the evidence. As ridiculous as it may sound, or some other aspects, some other eddies. Here's that current coming through the Rocky Mountain Trench, dividing, going this way. Sage Wall is over here, going this way, running into the Great Lake eddy center's pressures. As it approaches the eddy center, it deflects off of its pressure and goes more straight down this way to then go over here, but then it runs into the pressure of that eddy that we're seeing over here and other forces that it's eddying off of, essentially, going up this way, that really end up going over here, but they're running up this way into these downward flowing currents, and it goes this way. And some of it divides off here. I guess some of it goes this way and ends up into this eddy, and what divides left, it like participates in creating a boundary with what divides right and helps shape the Rockies in this region. I think this is still considered the Rockies. I haven't really looked at the technical details of Mexico all that much, and South America, or Central America, and South America somewhat, but more so South America I have, but it's larger, so really a lot not. But some of the currents go out these ways, it seems. Interacting with currents going the other way, especially here, it seems to be that there's a current going the other way. There's that one, and then some other currents. This is maybe worth noting. Particularly this with relationship to some recent earthquakes in the New York City region. Like 3.0 kind of magnitudes. There's Yellowstone flowing in, a bunch of eddy type things here. This one is Orofino region. I think this might be related to the clockwise rotation that's documented in this area. Here's another that I kind of put over here, one here, one generally here. There's probably more, like down here. Maybe a bunch of them here. It kind of makes me think of the Western Pacific. Probably more eddies still, but... And then some other currents all throughout Eurasia and Africa and northern North America and Atlantic. And this certainly not like completely set in stone, if you will. Generally feel this is pretty good still. This one does also continue straight, it seems. Just the general map here. Lots of stuff happened over here. This is worth noting, the Ring of Fire. How the Ring of Fire really formed is kind of ridiculous. It's unbelievable. In the currents of the flood, an eddy formed that we were looking at next to North America. That's really still visible here. It formed here, but more so when Australia was adjacent. That's actually later on when it fell over into that area as like a more permanent place, but it formed it there while being on Australia, and formed literally an ammonite structure underneath Australia in the magnetic anomaly map. In terms of like a fractal, iterative, fundamental process occurring, because that's really what they are, is like a iterative elementary particle that occurs across scales and isn't just like one way, but it's seen from different angles, but it's the same thing, just seen from different angles, where in all cases we use atoms to look at it. as the basis, basically. But where flows were all converging here, and that led to a focal point that was here that kind of spiraled out of here, essentially, and went over here. And then it moved up here and shifted over here, which was all while Australia was over here and here. So when it moved to the edge of Australia, it really moved over here, and then it shifted both ways away from here as well, and opening this region. But while it was here, it was forming the Ontong Java Nui plateau, oceanic plateau, that consisted of this thing, or at least comprised open language. There might have been more. This thing, Ontong Java plateau here, Manihiki plateau, and Hikarangi plateau were all once together. They formed together at the focal point that ended. Today is the Galapagos hotspot, but in terms of like where it is, but the energy flows still come over here, it seems. So maybe this is more of a focal point than I realize, given earthquakes, but that might just be because that's where the energy flows are going, but the hotspot is still the Galapagos hotspot. I don't know if it's there or there. It must be there. But so then the sphere, this focal point that was becoming an actual sphere underneath the crust, was being incubated by this system that was forming temporarily, which curiously has Ganang Padang on the edge. Or that's not the right one. Not Nan Madal. Nan Madal. That's the one. I know things. On the edge. So like if a Mu, a sunken continent, existed, maybe it was, my interpretation, Ontong Java Nui, and its remnants still exist over here. Maybe this was like more stable, some kind of like pillar of the whole that didn't collapse, but the rest kind of subsided enough to not be at sea level, above sea level. But then they broke apart, and they broke apart as this angel structure was forming, pushing against Australia. When it was over here, we can kind of see it here with the legs of the snow angel, legs of the snow angel going up to like a flame-ish region there underneath the focal point there, where it moved over there, but then went out there as this wing pushed against Australia, maybe even there. And just pushed into it, I guess, to a point where it's separated while also pushing into South America, so separating. And essentially all these currents are being focused to this region, but they needed to exhaust somehow, so what they did was they carved really high energy, thin, narrow channels that we call fracture zones that form like a trident structure out of the pole of this thing, like out of the pole, like it was going towards energetically to the North Pole. And it pushed against Ontong Java in one direction, pushed against Manihiki in the other direction, and pushed downward into Hikarangi in the other direction, as well as New Zealand. and then emitted a jet stream in the final direction with these other backstop systems. And that jet stream, in the midst of the high energy environment, cut through in narrow channels that transported the sphere to the North Pole, where it ran in through Alaska after hitting in Orofino. At the western Idaho shear zone bend in Orofino, where it ran into North America, boom, went off, left behind some materials that it brought along with it, and went northward, and then it reached a point where the counter pressures of the Earth's continents said, that's enough pressure into us, we will now slingshot you away. And so opposing this is basically the entire length in really multiple ways. As a backstop that maybe even had like a pressure into it. And then it slung shot away, but that was over here at the time. So I wonder if we do it more this way. It's interesting, it goes over here. Slung shot it away while moving out like a bunch of material from over here this way and kind of rearranging the area, shifting Alaska out because these were closed. This corner was generally over here, so they were just closed together, just folded inward with just like highly energetic process of rearranging everything. Slingshot this sphere out. It rolled in the process, interacting with the Philippines, where the bend of the Philippines was the sphere at the Apalaki caldera, running into resistance to a point where it actually bent from its path, but not without causing the Apalaki caldera at this time where it bends and goes this way, and then it runs into more resistance as it goes down here and bends again off of the pressures and goes this way, where it's basically caught in the primary equatorial current across here that it rests upon and like elongates it. I think it even like got behind it and pushed it like outward kind of thing, as what we were just looking at, like essentially the scorpion's tail, where it's wrapping around like this. Really initially it was even further over, or yeah, it was like this, and there was a current coming through here which shifted over, and so it pushed over further to a larger eddy, and then over that way, and then maybe off the edge up to that way, to basically elongate out sideways ultimately, as like it's almost like a hand, like I can't really push it further because it's kind of flexing in a hand of God, maybe even like kind of way, holding the world. I don't know. But then off the edge is this kind of vibrating path, which is going to come into play again as we look at earthquakes. How far are we? Hour and 6 minutes. We haven't even looked at the earthquakes. Maybe I should at least see what's up. Oh, I was thinking there might be something over here. I was thinking like basically in this path. I was thinking more like here in this area. Is this comparable magnitude to these ones? This one's bigger, but not much. They all seem related in magnitude, like a flow coming through. It's kind of got the same energy as it goes, producing similar outcomes when it runs into resistance. Another quake in Japan, which... Okay. What was that doing? Oh yeah. Boundary. So then here it kind of goes down and back up and vibrates. There's a bit of a vibration. A vibration, man. All sorts of different like frequencies even looking thing. And then here, when we look at the earth itself, it's maybe not that, like, this is obvious right here. Like how it goes like this, this, this. But really, if we follow this here and go across here, dot 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 to that one, like it seems like there's another wave in even this data. And then there's the dude here hanging out with diamonds. Along the Emperor Seamount chain. The sphere at one point hit here when the Hess rise was at Orofino underneath North America. I mean, open to debate some of these claims, I get it. But we gotta look at data, boys. You don't know how much data that fit, boys. Not without looking. It's one of these things where an idea comes along, and we've spent decades of weighing one idea, just putting more weight on it. Okay, like another observation that kind of fits in. Boop, another piece of paper on the stack, and it's heavy. And then some other ideas proposed, and the listener who believes the first idea and believes themselves maybe even to be open-minded to alternative ideas, unless so different that they basically are effectively saying the first idea is false, in which case that can't be because the person won't accept that. It's too far. If it's too far, then it's just not. I don't know what I was getting at. I'm a little high. This dude's high. Yeah, man. What you heard? Thanks, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate it. I don't even know if there's anyone watching this. Okay. Let's get to freaking. I might have been talking, I don't know, I'm trying to think what I was talking about, but... So I've got some new posts, so let's go through this one first. Kamchatka, I don't know why I didn't say anything. I think the picture spoke for itself. Unfortunately, I didn't. I've like realized I need to leave the side information open. So like, what the search details are is visible, but this was possibly in a given day. I'm thinking in the last 24 hours on the at this time, around about thereabouts, is what this was, and the quakes had a distinct general line over here, general line here, maybe even suggestive of like a pseudo line here that could be, but it doesn't like have enough space. And then it kind of abruptly turns into perpendicular, and perpendicular again, spaced, like they're spaced, but they're clustered. And this was like, I'm like, plate tectonics. Hey guys, I could get behind you guys being like, well, the plates are interacting, so. But then, what about this? There is different angles. Most recent went past this cluster. So here's the cluster. Here we go. 4.5. Oh, 1 day, 2.5 as of that time. Most recent went past this cluster. So this was August 3rd, 3 days ago. And the quake's somewhat quieting down, at least momentarily, as the pressures were able to get through. So my thought was, well, some kind of flow is going through some kind of channel where it is then interacting with its like container, and the container is getting slapped around by this current that's really just trying to get through. It's just flowing through, but the container doesn't have enough space. So it's just damaging the container as it goes, in essence, to effectively carve a path for it. It doesn't really care. It's like a pressure flowing kind of thing. I mean, it's going to flow according to the laws of physics. But then it flows forward, where then it's almost like it's running into resistance. And then maybe tending to produce quakes that way. Which almost made me think of eddies. Eddies at tangential interactions. Just from that, I don't know. That's not something I would put much weight in right now. I've definitely been contemplating those like more ammonite type details than I have prior. So then I said, oh yeah, so here's this like thing going on. This one in this cluster is a 6.8. And then I said, there was a 6.8 earlier in the day near the southern boundary where resistance was seemingly holding. So when I was looking at this, they were like happening, but they weren't as fast as they were happening. Like they were so frequent at this moment leading into this time that they were slowing down in a way where I said that. But then the 6.8 happened, and then we get like a slowdown that then leads into this one down here, almost like it made a way through, is what I was essentially getting at. It current flowing through here, producing quakes along its way, and here, like one general current that's got several branches, like a trident, that then ran into resistance and caused a quake and got through, but not without a delay before this one really happened afterwards. It was kind of what I was contemplating there. I don't know where this takes us, honestly, in terms of what I found and whether it's like fitting. Now a 6.2, this one, So another one down there, which matched what I was just saying. Maybe suggesting the resistance is being overwhelmed as pressure builds up further south after pushing its way through. So essentially my thoughts is there's other pressures involved, so these like don't necessarily hold the space they create eternally, so to speak. But these types of events can allow for pressures to vent. And then so the 6.8 allowed pressure to vent beyond a boundary that was generally there, that then led to more pressure beyond it, which then led to quakes down there, which just makes sense. And now quakes are going off in the region of Sulawesi and North Maluku. Or Maluku, I don't know if it's North Maluku. In Indonesia. I predict another, so I was, at this point, missing this. I know I didn't predict this correctly. I'm trying to, like, base on patterns I see, just to see. It's really testing. 1, 2, 3. God, getting in tune, like I'm out of tune. Like, okay, that didn't hit, per se. I didn't predict. I don't really expect to be able to immediately, so that's it's certainly a lot to figure out. Like I'm still, my point is don't like in that way. It's like that, what I was saying earlier. The person who puts all this weight in modern science's conclusions, where there's just like thousands and thousands of scientists' work, all agreeing, doesn't mean it's correct, all agreeing though, and having this weight. And then comes this thing that is like, well, what about that? And then like it's the end of consideration. So of course, it's the first is gonna look like it's correct, but that's not how it goes. So like, if I make some poor predictions, that's just a lack of my understanding of that topic. Like specifically, I really don't look at earthquakes that much. That's the thing. It's like a new to me. It's almost like a new page, a new chapter in my analysis. I don't know how far I'll take it. I mean, I'm hoping it to becomes fruitful in some way. Okay, let's continue. If there's a larger quake in China along this region, although I've realized, oh yeah, I gotta think in magnitudes. I'm a freaking idiot. 4.5 here, so there actually ends up being a similar quake, I believe, but not like something too concerning. At this point, I'm like, okay, shit's going down. Maybe this 8.5 might, like, the more it goes down, the more I can maybe understand it. Not that I want that or anything. I'm just robotically analyzing the shit killing millions at some point. Whoa! A new super volcano went off in Tokyo. Sorry, Tokyo. I didn't mean to pick you. Mantle puncture hole, eastern current. Then this quake happened. Very curiously, this Japan quake happened just prior to me posting about the sequence, although other quakes did not occur yet at those locations. So I was thinking, I don't know what I was thinking. Generally matches the magnitudes. Still, the general process does seem to concentrate energies. So essentially what I'm thinking is flow goes this way, runs into resistance here, and can go left or right. And it goes left at times and eddies. here, but if it like goes with enough oomph to get through pressures, it can go up to Japan where it runs back into the initial current and really can like lead to sufficient activation energy for a earthquake of a certain magnitude that maybe takes this loop being like active to really indicate something concerning is at play for specifically Japan. And I wonder if like all Japanese major earthquakes have a trend of quakes prior along this in like a generally sequential clockwise way. I haven't looked. I think I found it in at least one case, but besides this, just the large magnitudes ones leading into the 2011 at least. 1, 2, 3. So then I'm like, wait a minute. I was thinking it was going this way. It's also possible, based on the sequence, where they went 1, 2, 3, 4, that it ran generally into mantle puncture hole current pressure and couldn't go further, leading to an earthquake here that kind of got the flows going the other direction. And then another quake further ahead, and another over here, as it generally went back that way towards Kamchatka. Almost like it's like the end of a line over here, unless it gets through and reconnects, but it's still just like kind of the end of the line, unless it bursts off this way. Sometimes it does that, it seems. And then it also goes this way. Okay, so that's this thread. Another earthquake in New Jersey. So this is actually like one of my, what I would say is pretty major. A major finding. Like, it's something that no one else is pointing to. Here's the earthquake. Here's a pinch point. So there's a boundary here as well. And then a boundary here. Let's pull it up. So the quake is there, pretty much just to the left of New York City, Long Island, like right here. To the right of this thing. And to the left here, like in abutting it almost. Here. Along this path. So that's our first clue. It's along this path. That then generally goes back to here. Which then generally maybe goes across to here. And generally back up this way, across to here. And is being fed from maybe Fiji even. From the Angel with a flow going up this way and bending going in to North America and then kind of vibrating up and down this way. But then where the general current is flowing through and there's a width here that just pinches on both sides really. Like it's wider here, narrowing, and then pretty much narrowest, right? And especially between the middle one and this one, it's the narrowest right here. Right along there. Here's the earthquake. 2 of them, generally in that spot. It's also generally where this side pinches relative to here as well the most. Like it's definitely narrowing up to it. It might be about the same past it, but at most it's about the same. I think it's getting further away this way than it's getting close this way, though. So it's actually probably also just the center between the width and this one, and it's just a pinch point where currents are trying to flow through because things are flowing through the earth. And they go this way and got maybe shoved up into over into this, maybe more so flowing like across and generally up, that some of it got shoved into it, or at least is applying a pressure as a general center current is flowing through, so it just kind of probably creates like an eddy almost that snowballs out of control until it explodes because it has an inflow and no outflow and just grows and grows until it pops. But is it 3.0 or something in this case? So I think that actually provides pretty insightful relationship. Is there, like, is in the magnetic anomalies. I could be wrong about everything I've ever said, and that's still relevant. But I ain't wrong about so many things, and those all have relevancy too in the same way. So there's that New Jersey one, and then there was one in Kyrgyzstan, which was here, relative to this bend. Here's another place where current goes down and runs into resistance and goes left and right, kind of like at Australia that we're looking at. Let me go back a little. So then, New Jersey. Earlier this morning, a 5.1 in this place. Kyrgyzstan, oh my god, occurred as well, oddly, at a very similar latitude. I thought that was interesting. A similar latitude to the New Jersey one. That's not it. But they were both very similar latitude. 41.410. 40.989. Within a half a degree. I didn't really know what to make of it beyond that. I just noted it, really. It's also at a central, maybe a pinch point as well in this path as it goes through here. But it's pretty high magnitude, like it's interacting. I would expect it more along like this boundary, just based on looking at this, but it may be the current's like going down this way and going sideways and going this way, and current is then trying to go through, but it's just kind of blocked off, and it really needs to open a path sometimes, so it did it there. Pressure, here's the Iranian one here. There's, I guess somewhere there it is. 5.6 that here is right here, right inside of this bladder thing that has an inlet and like pseudo boundaries. Current going this way, bending. I was thinking, oh, this is kind of just me thinking. I think current comes in this way. And generally makes it across. And then there's pressure from up here that's generally applying a pressure over there. And then there's this boundary here, so it's kind of just like hard for things to get out. And then it just has a quake along that general area, possibly with the capacity to exactly understand where and why and when more. I don't know. Then I said, also today, of all the this was yesterday, of all the earthquakes at Kamchatka in the last month, this one is the furthest into the Pacific that just occurred today as a 5.0, a clear outlier. It is matched by the most recent quake today, sort of in its direction, this one. Almost like current going this way. Found an exhaust path is what I was getting at. And then I went ahead and this is 30 days. So even in the last 30 days, it's an outlier. This one here. Ignoring like an outlier in this direction, it's an outlier in the perpendicular direction. This one too, but like into the Pacific especially. Then I went at some point, let's see, 30 days. Here's the outlier on the magnetic anomaly map. Here's this general path that hooks into where the 8.8 was, and then this path. And then the outlier is outside of that path, strongly suggesting something is pushing generally sideways, where current was trying to go in there and something was in an opposition, and it shoved it more so this way, so it's not able to go in that way as easily. But then the outlier is almost like this current is even being shoved into the Pacific somewhat. The outlier is up here, somewhere up like there, I think. To North America, so this general boundary, I should have drawn the top margin boundary up there that actually encompasses this region of Kamchatka that's having so many quakes. So it's maybe like this pressure eastward is pushing the current eastward. Just maybe straightening it out somewhat in the more general sense, even though some of it's going into the Pacific. Then I looked further. In the last year, it's still an outlier. I mean, it's not like crazy outlier, but it's still quite an outlier. Still an outlier. I don't know why that might be it there even. I'm not sure. Or no, this is something else. Different post. Comparing this to all the 4.0 around the 1952 Kamchatka M9.0 earthquake in that time, as well, there were no such outliers. No such outliers during the 1952 swarm. And then I said perhaps a Hess rise quake in the future, which is again another prediction, and the reason I said this one is because it's so rare. Like, if one happened there, it would be quite telling. I don't know that it will. It could take time for some of these things. A place like this, if something like this even happened in a couple weeks, I'd call that a win. Okay, a rarity, but it has had them. So I found that it had them. Has rise earthquakes. Here's two of them in some amount of time. I don't know. At least a year. Then I noticed over here, if there's flow coming out here, this is where I specifically was thinking the quake might be at this pinch point, where I believe other pressures are generally holding a margin, like going westward here, that are going north but then going west and holding a margin up to a certain point, where then this goes through and floods out between it here, more so as a pathing, but like following especially margins that are pre-existing that formed in the flood. So when energy propagates this way, if this like anomalously outlier quake allowed energy through, maybe it would go this way, and maybe a quake would happen in this pinch point that seems to be here. Like, it essentially goes through here, and then probably generally goes along the Mendocino fracture zone. I don't know why it's doing that, but here's me doing it some more. Okay. So primary route being the Mendocino fracture zone, I was thinking. So I'm like, maybe there will be some quakes in northern California. And then I start thinking, oh shit. Like, this might actually let energy through here that goes over this way. And then I kind of mapped it a bit more. Noticing this, I'll go back to this some more, maybe. Definitely would like to look at the magnetic anomaly map with regard to Western North America a little closer. Then I noticed there's a bunch of quakes going on in Pahala on the Big Island that are oddly where these like ammonites I found are. You can see one there, but bigger even, and then this one's subtler, but in the data, in my interpretation, you can kind of see it there with this wrapping around it kind of structure, where it's just like an eddy that's got enough of energy to look like an ammonite. But then the earthquakes. So here's the margin, like a margin, and then sort of margin up here, and then this one's actually a pretty good margin, and the earth itself, margins. But then these quakes were there, I just noted it. It's like, that's odd. I looked a little further, and the quakes, there's definitely swarms in this area, but the quakes seem to be all over the place. I don't know. I couldn't find, I guess I could look. Like, they seem to be like here, like a huge amount of them. Ah, shit. Parade of volcanoes, and there's these bunch of volcanoes going off. Let me go back here. Then I said, okay, now I have 4.5 down here, which gave me the impression maybe it was, like, even though there's these quakes out here, it still didn't, like, open enough space to, like, let all that much energy through, like, long term. So it's still, like, clogged up enough for energies to propagate southward still here. And thereby that, oops. And there's a bunch of volcanoes that have been erupting. I wonder if that one erupted yet. Which I went ahead and mapped in the sequence that they erupted according to the one thing that I read, which is this one. According to this, eruptions of these ones soon followed. This one erupted first, according to this, of these 6 volcanoes, and then Shivaluk. I just assumed this was the order that they erupted in. Soon followed, even though they don't explicitly say. I didn't bother to look. I wasn't that interested until it occurred to me the numbers were actually like 1, 2, 3. So they did that like center, almost like a trophy thing, like a first, second, third Olympics kind of thing. 1, 2, 3, but then it shifts over almost like 1, 2. I wonder if 3 would be actually over there in that sense. Maybe even further where. But then it shifts over here where it goes in a bit. 4, and then ping pong still 5, 6. Just like it ping ponged over here, but to the outside, in, outside, in. And then they're saying 7, this one it might erupt because they're seeing thermal signatures. Then I just said, well, that's odd. That looks almost like this one here. And I look closer. I don't think it's. It might be a shield volcano or something. I don't know what it is. I don't know what to make of it. Like it has a boundary here that generally goes over here and then bends straight like a wrist, and then over across from there is almost like a wrist. Go that way and this way, which just generally maybe is circular. Like I'm like, maybe there's something here. There's definitely shield volcanoes. Apparently, like, this is a shield volcano. I couldn't tell. The GPS I found was like maybe like here or something. It's hard to say if they were like, this is a shield volcano, or if they were saying like, this is a shield volcano, or even this is a shield volcano. I don't know. It's probably not fully studied. Imagine I couldn't even find a name for this to like find information. Like, how do they not have a freaking name on this? Like, this has a name. Okay. Surely there should be a name around this thing. It's freaking nameless. probably what it's kind of like underground, where it's like got a path through, a kind of boundary basin, and then another basin where it can like get through. But it's got to carve a path in some manner that actually has more pressure around it, so it can be like resealed. And then just flow like chamber to chamber. Sometimes with more complexities, but it's kind of got a chakra appearance. Also makes me wonder though if this is 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6, 7, possibly 8. I mean, if whatever 8 is erupts, I think that would be a spectacle. Also, like they're freaking extinct. I don't know why that's not showing. Yes. Let's just keep seeing. There's the circle. There's also maybe another one there. Oops. I skipped ahead. Okay, I just moved past that. I don't know if that's... I just said definitely some possibility it's an extinct shield volcano. Several are considered extinct, but I don't know where I saw that, but I definitely have seen that. And then earthquake approaching California after the one, the 6 point something that kind of the outlier into the Pacific at Kamchatka after that one. That was a bit before that. I said now an earthquake approaching Mendocino fracture zone, or California near the Mendocino fracture zone path. Which then, if we look at it, here's the quake. On the magnetic anomalies, there's a bend that goes like this. There's a straight path that goes through and then seemingly relates to this bend. There's a more outer bend that goes more this way, another bend that goes this way. Unclear which are going which direction in some of these instances, pretty much all of them. Motherfuck. I said if this is the case, it does not preclude the potential that the northward path ran into resistance as it chose a path. It's basically thinking, well, it looks like the energy is going up this way, actually, if anything. If it's coming from Kamchatka over here, it seems like it maybe went northward instead of southward. But it's possible also that it tried to go northward and kind of ran into resistance where this earthquake occurred, and then almost like a train turning the changing the tracks it's on. It switched tracks and predominantly went a different direction, that maybe went this way or whatever, as possibilities. And in this way it's hard to determine what might be without just testing and observing. Something's going on that is decipherable, I would imagine. And then I was gonna watch. I watched this one, Nisqually Earthquake episode by Nick Zentner, and I just was like, where is this one? And I noticed it's here, which is pretty much along that path where that quake is. Continue along the edge up this way, and then just in, and then boom, almost like it usually goes straight and generally bends, but in certain circumstances it can get pushed in and go in. Mind you, this is at depth of like 65 kilometers, I think he said. This one's a little less like magnetic anomaly friendly, like its center, it's not like at a boundary of it. It seems like it needs more consideration to really understand why a quake like that might happen in this analysis. Well, it's not the case, dude, that's why. You fucking moron. Fell asleep, I said, during this one. Today's been curious thus far. First time I'm posting. So, thinking, oh, I'll do a prediction. Like, I see this again, so I'm just doing again. Just trying, seeing if I can hit any freaking bullseyes. And if I can get like a hot streak going, so to speak. It's like, well, friggin'. But I was just thinking, it seems like it's flowing generally through here, into here, and maybe we've been seeing quakes over in this area, so I thought maybe we'd see one there, as a, like specifically though, in the sequence. Which, I don't think has happened. There's been others, but not there whatsoever. Others in the general, like, the one by Africa. But then I realized, as we keep going here, it's also possible there could be one in Andaman Sea, so following the loop, all the things I just said up here. So then I said, well, maybe any of these, like, it seems like it's really flowing in possible ways. And then I was like, wait a minute, I'm kind of making a trident where it's like flowing generally in through here to create those, but then it's flowing generally along this way to produce that one, and generally along this way to produce that one that maybe ultimately has to wrap around, but like goes down this way to over here, but again, maybe ultimately has to wrap around in undercurrent ways where maybe any of those three I was thinking is more of a, I guess if it's just generally flowing, it could branch in any of these ways, given that I'm only considering a certain amount of data. But then it brought to light this trident thing, which I thought was pretty interesting. Shiva, the Destroyer, Philippine Sea, Plate Ripping Prophecy. That's, again, Stephen Burns mentions. I forget the Japanese lady. Japanese Prophecy, Philippine, Plate Sea. I don't know. Ryo Tatsuki. I guess it's this cover. What is that? Whoa. Oh, so I wonder if she, like, went like that. Like, shit, dude, me. Thing is, it has a bend at the tail that goes up. So following its straight path over that way. May not go over there, although it may go more like... This one definitely points over there. I mean, I could see. I wonder if that's literally how she did it, though. If that's... I don't speak Japanese. What does that say? Yeah, about protection, curious. Ah, shit. Then a 4.9 in Indonesia. In the region of the Australian Ammonite, really. In this little nook. I really fucking feel like shit. Fuck. I guess I should stop streaming. So that's what's going on. Nothing too exciting, I guess. There's that. I was thinking maybe the pressure was getting through and interacting along this boundary. Anyway, dudes, I gotta go. I'll see you guys. Peace. Thanks for watching.